This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
Oh, hey there. Welcome to CBSSports.com's presentation of how to play fantasy football. I'm Adam Aizer, host of Fantasy Football Today, but you already knew that. We've assembled our 8-time industry award-winning staff here to help guide you, the fantasy newcomer, through the surprisingly calm waters of fantasy football. What is fantasy football? The simplest explanation is this. You get together with a group of friends and you draft real football players to compete on your team. When they score, you score. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning, the draft. We've unearthed an instructional video from, as far as we can tell, 1953, found in the CBSSports.com archives to explain what a fantasy football draft is. I hope you enjoy. I know I did.
The fantasy draft, the backbone of any team. My team and I at the Fantasy Research Institute have studied drafts extensively over the past 18 months. This is what we've learned.
The draft takes place before the football season begins. Each owner takes a turn selecting players from the National Football League. Once a player is drafted, he is gone. A common occurrence at drafts is one owner inadvertently stealing a player that the person drafting immediately after him was about to take. Another occurrence is when an owner takes too long to make a pick, not being mindful of his fellow owners. Additionally, owners who draft taken players are considered annoying and wasteful of time. These events are usually signified with loud dramatic sighs or pounding of the table by the offended parties. And these people should be considered annoying all year long.
The draft continues until each team has filled out a roster, usually consisting of quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, and team defenses. This will be your team for the year. Huzzahs will be exchanged. Sideways glances will be made. Ah, the draft. The best day of the year. Although the draft here is conducted in person, we envision a future, possibly 100 years from now, where each American neighborhood has a large supercomputer and owners are able to draft with friends and family who are as far as 50 miles away.
Huh.
Imagine that.
Imagine.
Now, on to the second part of our study, a women's role in fantasy football. Please remember that a woman is never, ever allowed to play.
Whoa! Let's stop the tape right there. We have Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg, two of our wonderful analysts here. Hello, fellas.
You're a wonderful host.
Thank you. Goes without saying. Now, after a draft, what does a fantasy owner do?
Well, the first thing a fantasy owner does is set your lineup. The last thing you want to do is have the wrong players in the wrong spots. Then you watch an actual NFL game, and if those players score points, well, you get those points for your fantasy team. If Arian Foster scores 6 points, you get those 6 points.
Right, but you also get points for yardage along the way. For example, most leagues you'll get a point for every 10 yards rushing or receiving that a running back, wide receiver, or a tight end will have. If your quarterback throws for 200 yards, you'll get points for that too. Typically, it's a point for every 20 or 25 passing yards. It depends on your league scoring system.
And then at the end of the year, all those points that you get will add up to hopefully playing in the playoffs. You'll accrue a record, just like an NFL team will. And so when you get to the playoffs, when Dave and I are playing for a fantasy championship and someone is watching from outside the playoffs, you'll know if you're the winner or the loser.
Keep dreaming, fellas. Keep dreaming. Now, we do have some questions from some of our first-time fantasy football players. Are you ready to answer them?
Of course.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's find out what some of those questions are.
I pick NCAA teams in March Madness based on team names and pretty uniform colors. Can I use the same strategy in fantasy football?
You can if you play in my league, because I'll probably kick your butt. No, you don't want to necessarily pick players based on those factors. You want to pick players based on their expected outcomes, their projections, as we say in the industry. You're looking for players that are going to put up anywhere from 10 to 25 fantasy points a week, depending on position. For a running back, that might be a guy who gets 100 yards a game, scores a touchdown. Same thing for a wide receiver and a tight end. And a good quarterback will get you at least 300 passing yards and a touchdown or two along the way. That'll help your fantasy team survive from week to week.
Hey guys, what's a bye week and how will it affect my fantasy team?
A bye week is when a player on a team is off. He doesn't play, and you can't get fantasy points if you're not on the field. So, for example, Jay Cutler and the Chicago Bears are on bye in week 6 this year. Don't start Jay Cutler that week because he's going to get you 0 points. Find somebody off waivers or maybe have a quarterback already on your roster that you can start in his place.
I hear a lot of people talking about sleepers. It's just a player that's boring and puts you to sleep, right?
No, it's just listening to one of Adam Aizer's podcasts. I think when you look for sleepers, you're looking for someone who's going from out of nowhere to doing something successful. Guys this year would be like a Jake Locker, maybe a Jacquizz Rodgers. You also want to target some breakout players that are going to go from one level to the next, maybe like a Ryan Matthews or a Julio Jones. And the thing you want to stay away from is a bust, a guy that you expect to do well or hope to do well, but really disappoints you on throughout the course of the season. You want to get some good sleepers, good breakouts, and obviously avoid those busts.
I love the Jets. Should I just pick all Jets?
Well, no, but you should pick Tim Tebow, especially when he's running without his shirt on. I think if you lock yourself into one particular team, whether it's your favorite team or a team you just love to hate, you're going to really regret that come draft day, certainly throughout the course of the season, because if that team struggles, so will your fantasy team. You want to spread the wealth, get good players from different teams, and that will lead to a fantasy championship.
Whoa. Seriously, guys, though, what's an IDP and do I need penicillin for it?
No, an IDP is an individual defensive players. Why let the offensive guys have all the fun when you can use defensive linemen, linebackers, and defensive backs on your fantasy team too? Typically, you'll get points not only for the turnovers that they get, but also for the tackles that they make, and those can lead to some big fantasy production.
Now, Jamey, you are on those podcasts with me, aren't you?
That's right, Adam.
Okay, I'm just checking. How about some do's and don'ts for fantasy first-timers?
That's right. Do your homework. You never want to go to your draft unprepared. Read all of our stuff here at cbssports.com.
Nice little ad there. I like it. I like it. A don't that I have is don't stop paying attention just because the draft's over. A lot of people, they tend to forget about fantasy football after they have their draft. Don't be that guy. Play the waiver wire every week, set your lineup every week, and be an active participant in your league.
Yes, you should do some mock drafts. What those are the fake drafts leading up to your real drafts. You could do this at cbssports.com, and they will help you prepare for what actually happens on draft day. Now, you may have some crazy owners like a Muppet taking kickers in every pick in every round, but you can also get people around the country making smart picks that will help you prepare for when your draft day actually happens.
But don't go and take players just because you've heard their name before. There's going to be a point in the draft where you're going to sit there and you're not going to be exactly sure who to pick. This is when it's great to have that list of sleepers and breakouts with you so you can scan down your list, find somebody who's available, and take them. Just because you've heard of Terrell Owens or Chad Johnson doesn't mean he should be on your fantasy team.
Yes, and you should also make sure when you go to your draft, you know the rules of your league. Do you get a point per catch, which is a point every time a receiver or a running back catches the ball? Is it 4 points for passing touchdowns or 6 points for passing touchdowns? Do you have to play in an IDP league or do you actually need penicillin? These are the types of things you need to know about your rules when you step into your draft.
Hopefully you don't ever need penicillin, but my last rule is don't quit. Later on this year, you might not have a great record, okay? You might be 3-8. You're not going to make the playoffs. Don't be the owner who's going to quit on the league and not show up and not be active at the end of the year. Play it out. You're probably playing with people at work or friends or whatnot. Go ahead and ruin their seasons because yours is already ruined.
All right, well, I am satisfied. You feel like you're ready to play? Round up some friends, set your own league up at cbssports.com/fantasy, and you'll be glad you did, unless you lose every game, of course. We won't let that happen, will we?
Never.
All right, at least now you know how to play. For Dave, Jamey, the Fantasy Research Institute, and all of cbssports.com, I'm Adam Aizer. See you on the virtual gridiron.